So we're going to graph piecewise functions, and we need to be very mindful when we graph piecewise functions. Basically, we have two graphs, 4 minus x in this case, and 1 plus 2x, but we have to be mindful of their domains. So if we look at 4 minus x, I know that that's a line. I know that it hits the y-axis at 4 because the y-intercept is 4, and I know the slope is -1 because that's a negative x. However, I'm only going to be graphing that line when x is less than 2. So what I can sometimes do is I can start by looking at this equation and simply plugging in x equals 2 into that. And when I plug in x equals 2, I get 2. However, the domain here does not include 2. So what we sometimes, or I shouldn't say sometimes, what we will always do is at that point, when I plug in x equals 2, and I get a y value of 2, I'm not going to put in a closed circle because there's no value there. We put in an open circle, just like that, because we're not going to be including that value at 2, 2. Now, from there, I know that the equation of the line, again, has a slope of -1. So what I can do from there is just simply go up. Sorry, that's not the best dot in the world, but you get the general idea, I hope. Okay, and that is what, ooh, very bad picture, but sorry. That's what the equation of 4 minus x will look like when x is less than 2. All right, now next what we're going to do is we're going to graph the line 1 plus 2x. Now, I know that the line hits the y-axis at 1 because the y-intercept is 1. I know the slope is 2. However, we have to be very careful here because we have to look at that domain, and we notice that the domain is for when x is greater than or equal to 2. So what I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to plug in 2, but in this case, it does include an x value of 2, so I'll have a solid circle at that point. So I'm going to plug in 2 into the 1 plus 2x, so 1 plus 2 times 2, and I will get 5. So I know the point is 2, 5. So I'm going to go to the point 2, 5, and I can start with a solid circle because that's x is greater than or equal to 2. Now from there, I know the slope, and if I look right here, here's my slope. So from this blue dot here, I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and I'm going to do it one more time, up 2 over 1, and that is what my piecewise function will look like. Now, I did it in 2 different colors just so that you could get the general idea of one being different than the other and being able to kind of distinguish the difference between their slopes being different and whatnot. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, so this one's going to be a little tricky because I don't think I got enough points on my graph, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, so let's look at the first one. We have 2 plus x. So I know that the y-intercept is 2, and I know the slope is 1 over 1. However, I'm going to look at this domain, and that domain right there tells me x is less than -4. So I'm going to start by plugging in -4 into the 2 plus x. So 2 plus -4 is -2. So I know the point is -4, -2. Okay, now this is not including x equals -4. So when I get to -4, -2, I'm actually going to do then an open circle. Okay, when we don't include the value, we always have an open circle. Now I know that the slope is a +1, but I need to go to the left of -4 because I'm looking at values that are less than -4. So I'm going to go in this direction, like so. And there is the equation of the line 2 plus x when x is less than -4. All right, let's look at the next part. So now I have y equals negative x, which I know is a negative sloping line. The slope is negative 1 over 1. I know it hits the y-axis rather at 0. And we're going to look at this domain right here, and it is between negative 4 and 5, including both of those values. So I'm going to start by plugging in a negative 4. So if I plug in a negative 4, obviously, oops, I get positive 4. So when I plug in a negative 4, I got a positive 4. So I'm going to go negative 4, 4, and I'm putting in a solid dot there because it is including x equals negative 4. Now I'm going to do the same thing at the other end where it says x is less than or equal to 5. So let me plug in 5. So I'm going to plug in a 5 here, which is going to tell me I get a negative 5, which means then that my point is 5, negative 5. And again, I'm including that value because it says equal to. So I'm going to go to 5, negative 5, and I'm going to put in a solid dot. Oops, that doesn't look very solid, does it? So let me fix that. There we go. Okay, now I know the slope of this line is negative 1. So basically, you can see that I'm going to just put in a dot. I'm going down 1 over 1 each time. Okay, down 1 over 1 each time. And am I missing something here? 3, 2. All right, and then the last point is going to be right here. Now, I just want to explain that there seems to be a mistake and my erase button isn't working very well. This here is the point 5, negative 5. So I apologize for this dot right there. That shouldn't be there. I'm just going to put an X through it, but my erase button's not working. All right, so there is the f of x equals negative x. Now here's the hard part, because my graph isn't going to work for this last part. So if we look at this last part here, we have y equals 3x when x is greater than 5. So I'm going to start by plugging in a 5. And I end up getting 15. So then I know the point is 5, comma, 15. All right, so two things. First thing is I'm not going to include that point, so I'm going to have an open circle there because it says x is greater than 5. It doesn't say that x is equal to 5. Second problem is if you look at my graph, it doesn't go up to 5, comma, 15. So I'm going to try to improvise here a little bit. Now, I'm kind of out of space here, but if I were to plug in the next point, let's say if I plugged in 6, I would get 18, right? So then I would have the point 6, comma, 18. Now that one is fine because it's x is greater than 5. And then let's say, for example, if I was to plug in 7, right, because the slope here is 3, so I'd be going up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. I would get 21. Okay, so I know that my next point would be 7, comma, 21. Okay, so you're going to have to just kind of bear with me. These points right here would be the points that I would be plotting to get a positive sloping line somewhere, let's see, up here, but it's, you know, way up there. So I apologize for that, but I would have an open circle at 5:15. And then from there, I would have the next point will be 6, comma, 18. The next point would be 7, comma, 21. And then from there, I would have a line kind of similar to what you see here in blue, but going in the opposite direction. So it would kind of look something like this with a dot at the end, but this dot would be open, and it would be at 5, comma, 15. So I apologize for that. Okay, so now let's look at the next one here. In this case, we've kind of turned the tables a little bit, and what we're doing is we're looking to find the equation given the graph. So if we look at, and it really doesn't matter which one we start with, I usually work my way from left to right, so I'm going to look at the graph that starts at 0, 0 and shoots down to the left. So if I look at that, I know that the slope of that line is positive 1, and I know that its y-intercept is at 0, 0. So the equation of that line then would be y equals x. And then I have to write in the domain, and I notice that the domain is every x value that includes 0 and anything that's less than 0. So I would say x is less than or equal to 0 in that case. All right, now I'm going to look at the line that's horizontal. And I notice that that is the line y equals 2. So I'm just going to write 2. Okay, remember this is a fancy way of saying y equals, so y equals 2. But notice that I'm not including the y value when x is equal to 0. So in this case, the domain would be x is greater than 0. All right? Okay, the last one. So again, I'm going to do what I did on the last one. I'm writing the equations, but I'm going to start with the one furthest to the left. It doesn't matter, but that's the one I'm going to start with. The equation of that line is y equals negative 3. So I'm going to write negative 3. And then my domain would be x is less than 0, because notice that I have an open circle there at 0, negative 3. So we're not including the value x equals 0. Now if we look at the right part of this graph, you have to be a little careful here. Look at the points that we have. We have the point 1, 1, and we also have the point 4, 2. So if you notice what's happening is we're taking our x values and we're square rooting those. The square root of 1 is 1, and that gives us our y value. The square root of 4 is 2, and that gives us our y value. If this graph were to keep going, what do you think the next point would be? Let's think about that. Okay, so the next point then would be 9, 3, because we would take the square root of 9 and we would get 3. So the equation of that graph is radical x. But notice we are including 0, so we will say x is greater than or equal to 0.